Welcome to Fight Juice Online. Today I'm your host, Ray Winthrop. Um, I will be talking today about Disney Plus's limited series, Ms. Marvel. This is a topic that is dear and near to my heart because I loved the show. Spoiler alert, loved it, but it's not flawless. It has a lot of issues. So I've been seeing online, social media, a lot of people talking about how either they think that it sucked or it's the greatest thing ever. And I really feel like there's something there to both sides of the story. Does it deserve 98% critic rating? Remember that that's 98% of critics on Rotten Tomatoes, at least, have a very positive outlook on the show. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they gave them all gave them a 98. So yeah, I do think that it deserves positive reviews. Does it deserve positive reviews for every aspect of the show? That's the question. And are people wrong for hating it? That's another question. I honestly believe that it's a very legitimate view to say that you didn't enjoy the show as much as people saying it's great, I loved it, it's the best thing in Phase 4. So let's start off by saying, Ms. Marvel is based on the Marvel Comics character, Kamala Khan, who is a normal Pakistani girl from New Jersey, from Jersey City. She gains powers. In the comic books, she is leaving a party and suddenly walks through Terrigen mists. Terrigen mists are this alien cloud that basically gives her superpowers, and she's able to sort of like Mr. Fantastic, if you're familiar with the Fantastic Four. She's able to stretch, she's able to shrink herself, she's able to embiggen herself, as she calls it. Usually you'll see her with giant fists in the comic. That's kind of her thing. Or she's huge, sort of like, Ant-Man when he gets big. In the show, Kamala Khan, much like the comics, is a Pakistani girl from Jersey City. However, in this, she receives a bangle, like a bracelet, from her grandmother in the mail. She puts it on, and suddenly she has these powers to create crystals. Some sort of like a Green Lantern in the DC universe, which is very interesting. Still not sure why they changed her powers, other than the fact that they might not want confusion between her character and Reed Richards when he is introduced. Reed Richards being Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. So she now has these crystalline structures that she can create with the bangle. So the premise of the show is that, it's an origin story for Kamala. She receives the bangles, she starts trying to help people, and then she gets approached by a group of people who call themselves the Clandestine. In the comics, the Clandestine pretty much has nothing to do with what we are told in this, other than the fact that they call themselves Jinn. How do I say this? In social media, what I've been hearing is one complaint about the show is that there are people who are Middle Eastern, of Arabic or South Asian origin, and I don't want to speak for them, but I've seen people saying that they don't appreciate the fact that she's being called a Jinn. Jinns are considered stuff of nightmares, really horrible things. So this is an aspect of the story that seems kind of, it's almost like she's being called a demon, I guess. I don't know if that's completely comparable, but that's what I'm seeing online. So that's one of the complaints that I thought I'd bring up, just because it's not something I would have considered myself, but it is something that I think is a legitimate thing where people are like, why does she have to be a Jinn? why does the South Asian girl have to be a djinn? But yeah, so the origin of the clandestine in the comics and in the show is that they were a djinn. But the show makes a point of saying that djinn is just a label, right? We'll get back to that. So, like Thor, for instance, could be called a djinn because he's a supernatural being from another dimension, right? But we kind of move on from the whole origin story, and we go and she has to help the clandestine, is what we are told, very fast. Within the first 3 episodes, we are introduced to the clandestine, we're introduced to Ms. Marvel, and then the clandestine become enemies super fast. The story is very rushed as far as the main plot of who Kamala learns what she can do. She learns that the clandestine want her help, and then the clandestine immediately turn on her. They are pretty unreasonable, and the clandestine become her enemy. And that's like the first 3 episodes. By episode 4, she goes to Pakistan. And this is an interesting thing because I truly believe that this is where the show gets really good. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved it before this, but I loved it for Iman Vellani's performance as Ms. Marvel, as Kamala. I loved it for her family interactions. Her mom, played by, I believe her name is Zinobi Ashraf, and her dad, Mohan Kapoor. Amazing actors. I love them. They are sweethearts in the show. She has a great family dynamic with her parents and her brother. Wish it was more about that, honestly, but this is an MCU superhero origin story. So it's kind of conflicting knowing that we have Kamala Khan here having a great family story, but the main plot, the A plot of her origin and the clandestine is very rushed, not well constructed, and it's not. It doesn't have like a thread throughout it. You see what I mean? Because we really don't know anything about the clandestine. Their power sets are very much not defined. Like they have constructed weapons. We don't know why. They seem to be strong. We don't know how they're so strong. Towards the end in episode 5, the main villain, who's a clandestine, throws out some new powers, and she gives her son powers, and we don't know how that happened. It's just so vague, and I love this show, but I wish the main plot was better. And I've seen Bisha Ali, the director, say that COVID did hurt the plot or hurt the story of the clandestines, that there was more to it that they could not bring to the show, and that's a real shame. But I think that, much like the writer's strike in the past and other shows having to deal with COVID, can't use that as an excuse for everything. Breaking Bad, for instance, was only 6 episodes in its first season. And it was an amazing show, even though it was kind of rushed and it was cut short. But, it was affected by the writer's strike at that time, and they couldn't write more episodes for the first season. So it's understandable that it wasn't up to par, but they were able to create a complete story with that first season in only 6 episodes. Now, not everything needs to be compared to Breaking Bad, but as far as the excuses of we were in the middle of COVID, I think that at this point we need to be able to say, so was everybody else. There's some amazing shows being put out right now that were made during COVID. So, again, love this show, love the actors, wanted the main plot to be better, I honestly feel like the show was really hitting its stride in episode 4, but then they wrapped up the clandestine plot very fast, very lazily in episode 5. And we're left with Kamala going home in episode 6. And oh boy, this episode 6 was such a disappointment. I gotta say. Once again, had a beautiful moment with her father, played by Mohan Kapoor. Had a great moment with her mom. Really enjoyed seeing her get her costume and the origin of her name, Ms. Marvel. But the main plot of episode 6, the ending of the show, was once again a lazily constructed story of Kamala and her friends using Home Alone type tactics in a high school against the Department of Damage Control, which I think we've seen in other shows. I don't know if we've seen it on the big screen yet, but they're basically the bad government agency who are after Kamala and Kamran, the son of one of the clandestine members, who was given powers like Kamala, but he's not able to control them. So, it was a very bad episode, because the whole plot was we need to get Kamran to the docks in order to get him to Pakistan so that he could get away from the Department of Damage Control. My question is, first of all, why did they have to stop at the high school and do this whole rigmarole with the corny Home Alone type tricks? Kamala's brother shows up in the middle of the episode. Why didn't they just leave the high school the way he came in and just go to the docks? Because obviously he was able to bypass the DODC, that's what it's called, that was stationed outside the school. Why didn't they just use that exit? In the end, she digs a hole in the ground. How did she dig a hole in the ground? And he goes through the sewers to the docks, I think. How does he know how to get to the docks from the sewers? This kid just arrived in Jersey City, and he knows how to get to the docks from the sewers? What the hell? It's just so lazy and so rushed and so badly written. I'm sorry, guys. I love it. I feel bad about saying this, but yeah, this is the main plot. This is the A plot. And it's just not good. And I'm really sad, because I was trying to get my family members to watch the show when it first started. I was giving it a chance. I was making excuses for it. And I still do think it's worth watching. And I think it's worth watching more, I would say, than some of the other MCU shows that are on Disney+. I still really love Ms. Marvel, and I would watch it again. It has a really great, unique, reminiscent, but not the same as stuff like not Mitchell's versus the Machines. Just drew a blank there, sorry. And some other other movies and shows that I'm drawing a blank on right now. Man, I should have a script, shouldn't I? This is my first time, so sorry about the janky background and my general lack of preparation. But yeah, it is what it is. So wrapping it up, let's wrap this up, because I didn't want to take this too long. I just wanted to give my thoughts on Ms. Marvel in general. And yeah, once again, love the premise, loved Iman Vellani, and I can't wait to see her in the Marvels. I think she's very charismatic. She was great in this role. Loved the people who played her parents. Loved even the flashback with Aisha. Don't remember the actress's name. She was great, even though it was a very small role, very rushed. The whole Pakistan part of the show should have been the main show. I think that if they had started with episode 4, where Kamala and her mother are visiting her grandmother in Pakistan, and she gives her the bangle and she tells her the story, and we see the flashback then. And then we get to meet the Red Daggers, right? The Red Daggers are an organization, I forgot it because it's so rushed, forgot to mention them earlier, but they are basically opposed to the clandestine, right? And so we didn't get that much information about them. But if we had started with the plot in episode 4 and given it 6 episodes to breathe and like actually explain what the hell is going on with clandestine, who are supposed to be the main villains of the show, then I really think we would have had a really interesting, well thought out A plot. We did not need to go back to the high school in the last episode to have this whole if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, thing. I really don't understand what the point of that was. What I wanted to see was a well-written origin story. I knew that they were changing the origin. I understand why they couldn't have an inhuman plot in the show, right? At least right now. But the whole way they rushed the clandestine, they didn't explain their origins. They didn't explain their motivations well enough. Yes, they want to go home. But from everything we've been told, they know that it could destroy our universe. And as we can see, it kills one of them. And yet they continue to jump towards the gate. Are they lemmings? What is going on with these people? Why are they so suicidal when it comes to this? I don't understand. It just really needed more time. It really needed more time. It really needed more space. It needed more thought to the plot. The Avenger Con in the first episode was cute, but not necessary. The wedding, I believe that's the third episode. Kamala's brother gets married, and we see a Muslim, Pakistani wedding. It's interesting seeing this culture portrayed in a loving, wholesome way, but it's not necessary. So there's just so much that they could have cut, and I think it's very obvious that the action begins when they get to Pakistan, and that's where it should have started. That's where the story should have started. She should have met the Red Daggers, had clandestine explained, meet the clandestine, meet each of these characters that I don't even know their names. I don't know what their power sets are. I don't know why we're supposed to care about them. Other than the main villain, they're just faceless baddies. And we deserved more than that in this show, as far as the main A plot. So, in the end, it is both the best and worst of the MCU right now, in that it really did, like, for instance, when I think about the Eternals, it's just so dry and anemic, and 3 hours of posturing without any heart, right? But you have Ms. Marvel, and within the first episode, I love these characters, I felt more for Ms. Marvel, for Kamala and her family in that first 40-minute episode than I did in the entire 3 hours of the Eternals, right? For any of the characters in the Eternals. So it has heart. It's very interesting. The ideas that they're throwing out there, the idea of the Noor universe, the clandestine's home universe, the idea of the Red Daggers, I would have liked to know more about them before they were, sacrificed to the plot. So it had a lot of potential, where did it go? Why did it get, was it badly edited? Were aspects of the plot just thrown out because they didn't have time? I really think that, once again, starting in Pakistani, giving each episode 1 hour instead of only 40 minutes, that's a strange decision, Disney. You have enough money to make these shows 1 hour instead of only like 40 minutes. That would have helped a lot too. And I think just somebody coming along and looking at the script and being like, no, this is the cutesy stuff. It's fun, but is it necessary to the plot right now? And why is the A plot being sacrificed for the B and C plots? You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just not all there. And it really could have been. And it's a shame because I really feel like more people would have watched Ms. Marvel, at least after the first week, if the word of mouth had been really great. And I don't think the word of mouth was good enough. I think a lot of people watched it and said, hey, this is a great family drama, family comedy drama, but it's not a great superhero show. And that's not enough to get past the prejudice, the idea. Some people saw this as a kiddie show. Some people saw this as a girly show. Some people saw this as a ethnic show, and they didn't want that, right? But word of mouth does prevail, I think, a lot of times when you have people who have prejudices before coming to a show. If somebody had come to these people and said, hey, it kicks ass, you need to be watching this, you're missing out on an essential part of the Marvel Universe if you don't watch it, I think at least some of these people would have come around. Of course, it didn't help that it was up against Obi-Wan in its first, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. That's another issue. I don't know what Disney was doing with that, but it's for another day. Just in general, I think that it could have been better. It could have been a lot worse. If it were me rating it, I'd give it a solid B. But just generous, considering that the A plot is not great. It's not great at all. But I do think that the actors, it's it's a pleasure to watch. That's the thing. Despite not loving the plot, it is a pleasure to watch. It reminds me in that aspect of Spider-Man Homecoming, or No Way Home, pardon me. No Way Home didn't have the best plot. Sorry, guys. I know it's a beloved movie, but it didn't have the best written plot. But it's a joy to watch, And this, in some ways, is like that. But am I going to tell people who are in it for the superhero plot to go watch it? I wouldn't tell them that they need to watch this, to be familiar with what's coming next in the MCU. I wouldn't tell people who just want to see a fun superhero show to watch it. I would tell people who want to see a fun family comedy drama to come watch it. Some people who want to, just see Iman Vellani be Ms. Marvel for the first time, see her perform. I think that would be worth it if you got hours, 4 or 5 hours to kill. I think this is a fun show. It is not the greatest written show, but it is a joy to watch. The colors, the graphics, yes, the graphics, were all fun. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure learning about Kamala and her family, their history. It was very interesting to learn about the partition in India and Pakistan, to see the story of her ancestors. I just wish that it had all been more fleshed out. And yeah, that's basically it. That's basically my issues with it. I just wish it had been more thoughtfully created. That's all. That's basically it. So yeah, that's my review breakdown. This is very spoilery, by the way. You've probably guessed that by now. This is my thoughts and feelings about Ms. Marvel. And I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for another episode of my thoughts and feelings sometime soon. I'm going to be putting up my gameplay on Fight. I stream on Twitch. Every weekend. Hopefully I'll be doing it more often than that soon. But Gray Winthrop, my screen name is Gray Winthrop, no spaces. That's GreyWinthrop. I should have had it on the screen all this time, shouldn't I? Yeah, so stream on Twitch every weekend, usually doing games like Fallout New Vegas, and recently I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 Patch 8. I'll have other mostly role-playing games in the future, but I'll also do art streams. So if you want to watch me drawing mostly fan art, you can find me there, and I will be recording and putting these on this channel, Fight Juice Online, afterwards. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and thank you for watching, and see you again soon. Make sure to check out the other contributors to Fight Juice Online, the Fat Mantis, the Hold Up TV, and Shaolin Iceboxer. Bye. Have a good day. See ya.